starts to linger, it's home I know. If you catch me daydreaming now and forever, thoughts are carrying me along to that place we call home. Down that long road, throughout life we roam. Whenever I go to that place I know it'll always be home, home to me.
It's a place that lays claim to a number of prominent bards. It's sometimes referred to as the Poets' Corner of Canada. This community also lays claim to a number of titles: Market Town, Cathedral City. Those are just a couple that reflect its multifaceted personality. It wears a coat of many colors, a mix of ideals, all on the same turf, and everybody seems to benefit. I'll let you be the judge as to what name would best suit this place. Oh, at the moment, it's mostly known as Fredericton, the capital of the province of New Brunswick. Great stroke, and the time of the swing urging her on and on, lifting the long red swan. Bliss Carman. Fredericton, its river, its youth, and its schools. One of the oldest in the nation, the University of New Brunswick, part of the landscape for 2 centuries.
New centuries to the old centuries, reset and old centuries to the new centuries.
This once outpost of British authority along the American frontier is steeped in military tradition. The city of Fredericton is its market and houses of worship. It has sheltered its congregation since before the time of Confederation. The building of Christ Church Cathedral fueled aspirations for a town to become a city. There is yet another side to Fredericton, where people like Michael Oudemans represent a community within a community. A seedbed of the arts, it is a world also shared by recognized painter Molly Beaubien. Fredericton is its history, French, English, First Peoples, the tapestries of City Hall.
Here are preparing the foundations for the metropolis of New Brunswick, to which, as a mark of respect for His Royal Highness, the Duke of York, I have given the name of Frederickstown, which I hope will meet with His Majesty's approbation. All those letters are not woven, they're embroidered, because it's too small, you see, to weave them. Yeah. And that's the very beginning of Fredericton.
These Loyalists who come here, they are remarkably enough, almost entirely American-born. And these are people who descend from pioneering families. So the opening up of a new colony is not an overwhelming idea. They had loyalties to an English system of government and society, but they were something new. And they twigged to that at the very beginning. We are something new.
For Dr. Ivan Kroll, something new happens most every day as he manifests a passion for his community in an age-old medium.
Tapestries are a wonderful way of preserving history. And these tapestries will probably outlast this building. This building will probably not be here when the tapestries are still with us, you see.
Yet Fredericton is more than its surface features, its institutions, military, its provincialness. What has been called the last surviving hometown of America also wears a mask of the minstrels. Dr. James Downey.
In spite of the reputation that Fredericton has of a rather tight-assed and straight-laced town, that there really is a considerable toleration here of individualism and eccentricity. I think it was Alden Nolan who said that you could be absolutely bonkers and still have a place in this town, be accommodated in this town.
I would like to introduce to you my gang.
The Calathompians.
Oh, yeah? Well, this is my gang. Oh, yeah?
They hold their place in Fredericton society, too, interpreting folklore, literature, and legend with a zest of satire and local humor. Similarly entrenched in day-to-day life is the only school of its kind in the country, devoted exclusively to the training of professional artisans. Part of an underpinning of liberal arts thinking, the New Brunswick College of Craft and Design contributes to the city's creative optimism. Appreciation of things cultural brings to the picture the name Max Aitken, Lord Beaverbrook. His attachment to the St. John Valley has left its mark, as tirelessly he strived to ensure the youth of the province exposure to international works. This ideology, born in the beginning, produced our first English-language novel, Julie Beckwith's St. Ursula's Convent, Clement Moore's The Night Before Christmas, and a string of noted poets, the romantic Bliss Carman and contemporary Charles G.D. Roberts. Dr. Stuart Smith.
Because you're on the frontier does not mean that you give up all the advantages of civilization. Most of the people in the upper levels of society would paint. Most of them had musical gifts and abilities. They wrote. And that feeling that this was something part of life.
Art as part of life is a continuing phenomena in today's community.
What I do is wood engraving, and it's been called the most esoteric form of art that artists can practice today. One of the problems with the medium is that it's very time-consuming, and very few illustrators would actually take up and practice wood engraving. I think you have to have some sort of perseverance and real keen interest in cutting wood to make images, whereas it would be a lot faster to make an image with a pencil on paper or with watercolors. Most people that do it purely because they love it.
Here, a diversity of expression takes on many forms. For Molly Lamb Bulback, drawing on the universality of ideas is what is important.
I don't go searching for subjects. They come to me, or they don't come at all. When Richard Hatfield died so suddenly, they had a memorial service at the Anglican Cathedral here. It was raining, a dreadful day in early spring, and not any color, leaden sky. And all these umbrellaed people were all standing trying to get into the cathedral. And I thought, well, I guess it doesn't matter if you have added things to your painting, like history, because in a way that was a little bit of New Brunswick history. And I painted it with that in mind as much as anything else, that this is an event.
Mid task and toil, a space to dream on nature's face. Charles G.D. Roberts. The poets, painters, legislators, and critics, as people of the St. John, they share one common bond, a river that is theirs. City Hall's Phoenix Square. Described by novelist Thomas Riddall as Her Majesty's Yankees, Fredericton's citizenry of the latter century would gather here to combine civic matters with opera. Today, many of the city's population of 40,000 also hold an affinity to a natural feature. Take Donald Fraser. Canoes have been his life. While building under the Fraser name, he also helps preserve the legacy of the chestnut, the canoe that put Fredericton on the map of Canada's north. As the chestnut name is to Fredericton, the canoe to the water, the river is the city's reason for being. Originating in the U.S. state of Maine, the second largest waterway to feed into the Atlantic, the St. John nourishes the heartland of New Brunswick.
The first users of this place were the Maliseet Indians, and they used the river as their livelihood really year-round. And every spring, they would come down from the northern part of the province where they'd been hunting, and Fredericton was one of the camping spots. The Maliseets are the people of the river, and the river for them was life. Spring, summer, fall, winter, it was life.
From the days of Boss Gibson's timber rafts or the horse-powered ferries called teen boats, here, 120 kilometers upstream from the Bay of Fundy, the St. John pervades.
Fredericton has not grown to the extent that has allowed its architecture to obscure the river, either the sight lines or the importance of it. It still predominates in Fredericton. This great river that flows right through the heart of this town. And in an hour's walk, you can pass from absolute wilderness to observe architecture from almost every period of the last 200 years. You see along the way the high level of individuality expressed in the houses, for example, along George Street, along Charlotte Street, along Waterloo Row. The past is more prominent in the present than it is in most places. There are sort of layers of history.
Written into the mosaic of the past is the intense French-English struggle for North American supremacy. On the opposite shore from the present-day city, the year 1642 saw the establishment of a cornerstone of French Acadia, Fort Nashwauk.
The Acadian settlement began by the same process that would take place in Quebec. That is the seigneurial system. This was part of a seigneury. It was a settlement, it was a community, it was fundamentally a farming and was in the sense of survival agriculture, a farming community with the trade in furs to another extent and the development of the local fishery. It was a very lush and attractive place.
The registry of contemporary Fredericton contains family names tied to the period of French rule. Today's society is far removed from those tumultuous events that followed, a reordering of power, of which the fall of Acadia and the American War of Independence played a part. Separated by 50 years, these factors dramatically altered demographics on the shores of the St. John. "We're all refugees here," signaled a mass movement of Loyalists in the latter 1700s. New Englanders poured in, doubling the English-speaking population of what is now New Brunswick. At St. Anne's Point, brick by brick, the building of a new era began.
They have very clear ideas about what they require in a community. And of course, you require schools, you require church, you require good, stable government. No revolutionary nonsense. They'd been through that. And so the demands of a civil society are there from the very beginning.
These early Loyalists were petitioning the governor, Governor Carleton, to grant them what amounted to a license to establish an academy to educate their sons. It'll show you what kind of priorities those early Loyalists had. It was a school at the beginning. It became a college in 1800, and really only in the 1820s would it start to have what we would call university status, that is, to graduate people with degrees. And it wasn't until 1829, in fact, that it received a royal charter. It became King's College, and not until 30 years later did it become the University of New Brunswick.
The 18th century requirements within a town or city were the provision of a market for the orderly marketing of goods, the provision of some measure of security for person, in the case of some kind of police provision, and the security of property. Of those very limited roles for a city, the most important for most people was the market. The market grew out of the essential needs of the community, which still to this day thrives and goes on, and is, if you live in Fredericton, one of those activities that is part of the calendar of life. It's Saturday morning, it's market time. And I know people who don't even buy at the market, who go to the market just because it's Saturday morning, and that's what you do. The other thing that would distinguish a village or town or city came from an earlier tradition, and that is the fact that the seat of a bishop is by definition a city. And so Fredericton, being part of a bishopric that included Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, wasn't likely to get any status that way. So it wasn't until 1845 that that moment came. And so when Bishop Medley came and established his cathedral, his palace in Fredericton, it automatically got the status of a city, even though it was really only a village. But Fredericton takes that status of a city in 1845 with the building of the cathedral, and a very important structure, even in the context of English architecture.
The year of the founding of King's College would also see the beginnings of Fredericton as provincial headquarters. Here at the heart of the community, ceremonies carried out by British regiments, garrisoned here from 1784 to 1869, delivered the colors of allegiance while shaping ideas in transition.
Fredericton was chosen for the seat of government because it had a strategic location. And so from the beginning, Fredericton was a garrison town. It had an artillery establishment and it had an infantry establishment. And the garrison here always played a very active role socially, not a role politically, but a role socially, certainly. They set the standard for public entertainments. From the beginning, that American population had with it a British population. And that mix, again, reinforced the idea that we were different. We were different from what had been left.
Past to present, people making a difference. Like Calathumpians, acting out the life of the community and its values, all playing a part in preserving the story of a place of many names.
Use this as a base. She has the orange dress on here, and we try to follow these colors as closely as possible. These are the English settlers, are they? And they're bringing over the black.
For Ivan Kroll, a life's interest in perpetuating history has a well-rounded purpose.
Here's your colors. That is what we made from the colors. And these were the... My philosophy is that an old man, an old person, doesn't need money so much as he needs a challenging hobby. And the children of Fredericton, they're brought in to see the tapestries in City Hall for miles around. And I think they love seeing that tapestry. Now, a peculiar thing, would you look at the horse, do you see the gray horse? Yeah. He's looking at you, isn't he? Yeah. Now, you go way over there, way over, and that horse, that gray horse is still looking directly at you, isn't he? Aha. See, that's missing. How do you like that?
Throughout 2 centuries of romance, privation, and struggle, a community has risen on the banks of what was once called Ulastuk, Long River. It is a place that has accommodated many roles. Ultimately, the most important is its place as a hometown. So, friend, with ears and eyes which shy divinities have opened with their kiss, we need no balm but this. A little space for dreams on care unsullied streams. Mid task and toil, a space to dream on nature's face.